Okay, so welcome to the new course of theory and design. Now, this antenna theory design will be taught by me. The syllabus I am going to share in a little later. At first, I will start with the very first module, which deals about the antenna basics and fundamental. The course code is AVR 612. So, as you all know, the last semesters we actually dealt with the systems of different microwave systems, which actually is necessary to design the front end and the back end components of a transmitter and receiver. But antenna basics and fundamentals or antenna will discuss, this entire course will actually discuss about the different geometries and how different radiations took place and how you will design different antennas that can perform a specific task. Now to start with, how actually we design this antenna, this will be only clear if you get first be familiar with some of its basic characterization parameters. So I will start with that one. Now, first we have to know that how an antenna radiates. You can see in this figure that there is actually a length of wire, and the length is L, and the cross section is A, and I have shown a strip delta Z. So the current is due to the uniform applied electric field E. The current is flowing from one direction to the other direction. Let's say the current is flowing from minus Z infinity to plus Z infinity, which I have termed it as JC. So you know that J is the term which we call it as surface charge density. So this JS and JC I have defined. So from that we can define the line charge. So the line charge is actually QL, line charge density. So I can write that Iz equal to QL Vz. Now in that Iz, I can take the derivative and I can get Diz dt and QL dVz dt, which is QL Az. Now L Diz dt, L is the total length of the wire, and if I multiply it with it, I will get LQL dVz dt, which is LQL Az. Now this actually what tells or discusses about how and where can radiate. So Diz dt is what? The time varying current, and because due to which the acceleration Az component is coming, which is the acceleration along the z direction. So somehow to get the radiation from a wire, we have to have a time varying current. If the current is DC or if it is uniform and the wire is very straight, then I cannot expect any radiation out of it. Then in which cases or in which physical geometries also play an important role for radiation. Now how to better illustrate this fact, I have few pictures with me. Before that, I will just summarize it. So if you have seen that if the charge is not moving, that is there is no question of having current. So if there is no current, then there is no radiation, because just now we have seen the equation, there is a term involved Diz dt in the radiation, and there is a time varying current should be present. So if there is no charge, no current, then there is no radiation. The second case is if the charge is moving with uniform velocity, and then also there is no radiation, because it is moving uniformly and your wire is straight. Provided if your wire is having some bend and discontinuity, then the uniform current may get disturbed and there may be an acceleration or deceleration may take place for the free electrons, and their uniformity will be lost and there will be a disturbances. From that disturbances, the radiation may occur. So the uniform current can take part into radiation if it flows through a radiator or a wire which is not in very straight, rather there is a bend or discontinuity, or there is a terminations or truncations. And if the charge is oscillating in time motion, that I am telling, that is a perfect case, the time varying current, then and you can take a normal straight wire and it will go into radiation. So to illustrate these facts, I have taken these geometries and I have shown you that if actually my geometry of the wires are curved, bent, discontinuous, terminated and truncated, then how the radiation can take place and where the discontinuities are coming and how wherever these discontinuities are there, they are actually taking part into the radiation. Now, how generally if you see, before when I am talking about radiation, that means that you are actually talking about, or possibly you are thinking about launching a wave into the free space. Now my question is that how this launching of the wave can take place. So for that, what we need to do, let's say first you take the first box, red color thing. So I have a two-way transmission line, and in that two-way transmission line I actually have a plus and minus the field formations, which is the electric fields which is going from the top conductor to the bottom conductor, and in the next phase it changes its direction, which is from bottom to top. That's why the plus minus changes are showing the phase reversal as the wave progresses through this guided medium. Now you can also see that at the right end the guided medium has been gradually flared, and ultimately the flare size has become big, and it actually terminates in a free space. Now this flare is made in such a way so that the impedances looking at the flare side from the free space is matched to the free space impedance, which is 377 ohm, and that is why the impedance match took place. And once the impedance match will take place, that time we will have a radiation. Now this phenomena is better visualized in the right side. I have shown it in array. So you can see once the wave is actually launched, that time they have formed a spherical waveform, and it is actually shown in a donut. It is shown kind of circular waveform kind of thing. The same thing can be visualized for a biconical dipole antenna, which you have seen in a triangular two arm of the triangular kind of things. Now, so this is actually launching of the waves, and how this is a general concept that how when you are actually excited a guided media, it will immediately not take part into the radiation. You have to do certain matching, and then only it will able to radiate, and that is actually the logic behind all aperture antennas. And this launching thing was better explained when we will be dealing with the horn antennas. So but this is just an overview of how the launching take place and what are the things you have to take care while radiation thing. Now then we will discuss about the what is the antenna parameters. Now this is very much in every book probably you have seen that people when discuss about antenna they talk about radiation. So the radiation pattern is actually how they define that we are going to do now. In this figure you can see that there is a unidirectional radiation pattern, and it has a certain main lobe. So the radiation pattern is defined as a mathematical function or a graphical representation of the radiation properties of the antenna as a function of space coordinate. So space coordinate means if it is a Cartesian, then it will be x, y, z. If it is a spherical, then it will be theta, phi and z, and r theta phi. And if it is a cylindrical, it can be rho phi z, depending on the selected coordinate system. I have shown it here in a Cartesian and in a spherical thing. And see that how it is actually done. This unit vectors have been defined for a spherical system, and this mathematical functions of the electric field in a space coordinate. So I can see that the vectors ER and HR, or vector E and H, has been defined along the unit vector directions, and the elemental area is actually defined in spherical coordinate. So there are few prominent lobes which we can visualize from here, and one of them I have defined is, one of them I have termed it as major lobe, the other ones are minor lobes. And you can see two planes, two major planes we are seeing from the antenna radiation pattern. So one plane I am calling it as azimuthal plane, and the other plane I am calling it as an elevation plane. So the azimuthal plane is actually the xy, and the elevation plane is xz. Now how this azimuth and elevation plane is defined, that is based on this particular picture for a unidirectional radiation pattern. Now if I see the field pattern and power pattern, so what I have done, this 3D figure of the radiation pattern that we have seen, that I have taken in a different scale. So I have taken electric field and an amplitude I plotted, B power I plotted, and third box is in dB scale. Here few things is clear which I am trying to show is half power beam width, which is very important for an antenna. So the half power beam width is basically the angular space of inside that major lobe where the power becomes half or the amplitude becomes 1 by root 2. And 3 dB, if it is a decibel scale, then it is 3 dB down. One more thing, it should be noted that whenever we are crossing a null, that is the zero intensity zone, my plus becomes 0 and then I am writing minus. So that is why plus 0, minus 0, plus, like that in every figure it is alternating. It is just a way of convention, it has nothing to do with the charge. I just want to show that how the half power beam width looks like, and the half power beam width means the power becomes half with respect to its normalized thing, and accordingly the amplitude and the dB scale, the scale will be there. Now this antenna radiation pattern, I have splitted it in the Cartesian coordinate, and if you see in the Cartesian coordinate, half power beam width point I have shown. The prominent major lobe is there. Except major lobe, whatever lobes are present, that we call it as minor lobe. Now in that minor lobe, that can be classified into two this thing. There are sub-classified. So in the minor lobe, there are some lobes which I call them as side lobe, and there are some lobes which I call them back lobe. So the side lobe means the lobes which is not the major lobe, adjacent to the major lobe, and it is taking some portion of the radiation and directing in a different way, not in the intended direction, like along the z axis. Those lobes carry certain amount of power called the side lobe. Like I can say here first side lobe, second side lobe, third side lobe, like that. And the back lobe is the lobe which is carrying the power in just opposite, 180 degree opposite of the major lobe. And you can see that the major lobe is bounded between the two beam width point called the first null beam width. First null means this is the first null that the antenna is seeing. Null means the low intensity zone, where the weak intensity zone where the radiation is 0. In our case, the major lobe will always be bounded by between the first null. So the majority of the power is going in the major lobe, which is bounded by between the first null. Now first null beam width is basically the total beam width corresponding the major lobe power. Now if it is clear for you, then we can move ahead for classifying different types of radiation pattern. Like I have already told you that this unidirectional radiation pattern is a class of aperture antennas. So this horn is actually basically aperture antenna. Its aperture is radiating. So you can see that horn in my left side is this radiation, how it is taking place, and what is E plane and what is H plane. So the E plane and H plane thing I will come a little later, but this radiation is coming, you just notice that how the radiation comes from a horn. This type of radiation pattern I am calling them as directional radiation pattern, because it is directed along a particular direction, and in my figure it is along x direction. Other two kind of radiation pattern is called omnidirectional radiation pattern and isotropic radiation pattern. So omnidirectional radiation pattern, you can see that it is omni in one plane, so it is radiating equally all in different direction, and that plane is the azimuth plane according to my figure, which is theta 90 and showed in light green color, and other plane is actually directional. So the other plane, it is phi equal to 90 degree and it is shown in a figure 8. So the other plane, it is directional. And the isotropic radiation pattern is the pattern for where the antenna is radiating equally well or equal in all direction. This is an hypothetical case, since no antenna people can make which can radiate isotropically, that means equally same in all over the direction. This generally, this is three major kind of classification of the radiation pattern, and that we are familiar to see. Any antenna, if it radiates, it can be classified either majorly and belongs to three of them. Now, so far we have defined what are the antenna parameters. Now we will be defining some of the antenna parameters in a mathematical way. The very important and very fundamental parameters of radiation pattern is radiation intensity. So far what I have told you basically is what are the different parts of a radiation pattern, how the radiation takes place, and what are the majorly different types of radiation pattern exist, and what can be its part, and what is half power beamwidth, what is major lobe, minor lobe, side lobe, like that. But now the parameters that I will be discussing is actually the major characterizing parameter for antenna. So the first and foremost and very important parameter while defining a radiation pattern is called the radiation intensity. The intensity of a radiation. What do you mean by the radiation intensity? The radiation intensity is defined as the power per unit solid angle, and it will be always in a given direction. So the radiation intensity in a given direction is the power per unit solid angle and radiated in this direction by the antenna. Now what is actually solid angle? The solid angle is defined by ds by r square or s omega by r square. What is that? To understand what is solid angle, you have to take the help of this blue, sky blue color of sphere. I have taken this sky blue color of sphere, and in that sphere I have taken or I have selected an area. Let's say this area is, subtending an angle of, say, subtending an radius of r, and that area is r square. So what I have to do? I had to do the area that we have selected divided by r square. So that is why I have written that 1 steradian is the solid angle with its vertex, means center, at the center of a sphere of radius r, which is subtended by a spherical surface of area r square. So if I take a area of r square, surface area of r square, and that surface area of r square, if it is radius from its center of vertex of the sphere, if the radius is r, then the total area will be defined by 1 steradian, because you can see that r square by r square, it will be 1. And similarly, if the total sphere, if you consider the total surface area is 4 pi r square, divided by r square is 4 pi. So the sphere is having the total 4 pi steradian. 1 steradian is defined by the area r square subtended with the vertex r. So this is a very important quantity, and in elemental case it will be ds by r square or s omega by r square. Why? So that means I need to consider for radiation intensity is power per unit solid angle in a particular direction. So the power per unit solid angle means, now you can understand that power, how much power is going through that area considered, or that elemental area in that spherical coordinate or the spherical space in that radiation boundary that you have selected. So what I will do in a normal spherical coordinate, I know my elemental area is r square sin theta d theta d phi. That I hope we know from our basic BTech electromagnetics knowledge. So r square sin theta d theta d phi. Now I know that I just now defined the solid angle, which is ds by r square equal to d omega. So ds equal to r square d omega. Then using this relation I can write d omega equal to sin theta d theta d phi. Now the radiation intensity, now we are in a position to define. So the radiation intensity U, it will be delta omega tending to 0, the power radiated per unit solid angle. So power radiated has been defined by delta pi rad divided by delta omega. Delta is actually the discrete parameter. Now delta omega tending to 0, that delta will be continuous differential. So d pi rad by d omega, which is omega watt per steradian. So then this quantity is actually the watt per steradian and is defined as the radiation intensity. So the pi rad is defined. If I now from this, using this relation, if someone wants to find out what is the power radiated, what he has to do, he has to just integrate the radiation intensity over all over the solid angle. So he has to write u d omega and he has to integrate it over the whole sphere, and the whole sphere solid angle is 4 pi. So the integration limit is lower limit 4 pi, and the unit will be in watt. Now, so this whatever we have defined is just a solid angle and radiation intensity. Now what I will try to do, I will try to relate this radiation intensity quantity with the radiation density, you can say, or Poynting vector power density, whatever you can call. So the radiation intensity and the power density. So I know that my power density is power per surface area. I mean power, if you are considering, then how much power in a particular surface it is going. So P is nothing but d pi, which is the power, direct power radiated, divided by ds. ds is that the elemental area you have considered. So that is my power density, because it is watt per meter square. Now I know that ds equal to r square d omega. Now again d pi by d omega, just now I have defined it as radiation intensity, so u by r square. So then u equal to p times r square. So from this, actually it is clear that if I want to define P, which is radiation, which is power density, is inversely proportional to 1 by r square. That is, if my radius is become increasing, then my power will be fluctuating and it will be decreasing with inverse square. Whereas radiation intensity doesn't depend on r, radiation intensity depends on the theta and phi and the solid angle that you have selected. This is a very important parameter that relates your radiation intensity and power density. Now what I will do, I will try to find out more fundamental form of it. So the power density, I will try to realize it in terms of E and H. So we know that in free space, E and H, they are, they are orthogonal in fashion, and then their impedance is eta, which is the 120 pi. So the radiated power is Poynting vector half of eta mod h square. From our BTech electromagnetics knowledge I am writing. So half of mod e square by 2 eta. Now u theta phi is nothing but your r square times p rad. Just now we have seen u equal to r square p. P is the radiated power, u is a function of theta and phi, that I have written, and the radiated power I have just now seen in terms of electric field, it's coming like this, I have put it, and the measure u theta phi I wrote in terms of e theta and e phi. This is just for the sake of completeness. So we have seen that how the radiation intensity is defined, we have seen how the solid angle is defined, and we also have seen that what is its relation with the power density, and also we have seen that this radiation intensity, how it can be written in terms of the electric fields, or it can, if someone wants it, he can write it with the magnetic field also. Now moving on, I will talk about the directivity. So this is also an important parameter if you see for antenna. So this directivity has a relation with radiation intensity. So directivity is defined, sometimes if you will see that in people talk that my antenna is more directive than yours. So what does that mean? Or you may find, or you may come across that in any paper or books you have seen that they are telling that they are quantifying that my antenna directivity is 30 dBi. So what actually the directivity means? So the directivity by definition means in a given direction the ratio of the radiation intensity in a particular direction divided by the radiation intensity averaged all over the direction. So d theta phi, if someone defines the directivity, then the radiation intensity in a particular direction, which is defined as u theta phi, divided by the radiation intensity averaged all over the direction, which is u average. Now we have already seen that my u average is p rad by 4 pi or pi by 4 pi, isn't it? Because in the few slides before we have seen that our this u whatever I am writing, this nothing but u average is equal to p rad by 4 pi from this. This is elemental case. Now for a total sphere case, if you consider u is equal to average, u average equal to total power d pi rad will be, let's say, p rad or pi rad divided by the total sphere solid angle, which is 4 pi. So u average will be equal to pi rad by 4 pi or p rad by 4 pi. That's what I have used it here. U average equal to pi by 4 pi. So it is coming like this. Now since we are considering the directivity for maximum in a particular direction, so it is a d max, which will be, let's say, d naught, and we will get where u theta phi is maximum, because your denominator is actually a constant quantity. So the depending on the directivity maximum position, we will obviously get where your radiation intensity is maximum. So I am writing the maximum directivity is a position where u theta phi is giving at that theta and phi, where your u theta phi is equal to u max. So the directivity is a dimensionless quantity, and that's how we can define. Now whatever directivity I have defined, this is generally people understand as absolute directivity, and wherever you will get, people will talk whenever they will say that the antenna is directive or directivity of this much value, means they want to understand, they want to physically tell that your antenna is basically directive in a particular direction of this much value when compared to an isotropic radiator. Because u average, whenever you are writing, u average whenever you are considering is basically the p rad by 4 pi. So that is the radiation intensity averaged all over direction equal to the total radiated power antenna divided by 4 pi. So if the direction is not specified, then the direction of maximum radiation is generally implied. If someone is not, if someone is telling that directivity is 5 dBi, he meant that it is the directivity, means it is the maximum radiation intensity in that direction it is going. That's why it is directivity. So by default, that maximum thing is implied into it. Now there are one more sub-classification of this directivity, which I call as partial directivity. So how this partial directivity is defined? It is similar. The before relation whatever you have got, this u theta phi will be replaced by in one theta polarization u theta, and if you want to see it in partial polarization phi direction, it will come as u phi, and rest of the equation or expression will be kept similar. So you can see in the last expression it was already pi, which is the average power radiated, theta and phi, so that altogether has been considered, and theta polarization partial directivity is considered as u theta, and phi direction radiation intensity is considered as u phi. So that is why it is expressed in this way, and I can say that the partial directivity of an antenna is specified for a given polarization of the field, and it is defined as that part of the radiation intensity which corresponds to a given polarization divided by the total radiation intensity averaged all over the direction. And the next thing, let's say it is beam solid angle. So just to be recollect, so what are the things we have seen? We have seen radiation intensity, we have seen solid angle to understand radiation intensity, then we have seen the power density relation with radiation intensity, then we have actually seen majorly directivity and partial directivity. Now there is one more term or the characterization parameter called beam solid angle. To understand the beam solid angle, what we will do, we will take the total radiated power. So the total radiated power is P radiated, and we know that the power radiated is nothing but we have to take the radiation intensity and I have to integrate it all over the solid angle, which is d omega. Now u theta phi is actually radiation intensity and it will definitely be a function of theta and phi. Let's say that function is b naught f theta phi, u theta phi equal to b naught f theta phi, and b naught is an arbitrary constant, so it is coming outside the integrand, and d omega I have splitted it in sine theta d theta d phi from a spherical coordinate, and I have put the limit on theta and phi in integration. So d theta phi I know from my previous part, you just go that d theta phi I have written 4 pi u theta phi divided by pi. This pi is nothing but the power radiated. So then I can come here and I can write d theta phi equal to 4 pi divided by u theta phi was there in my numerator. Now my u theta phi is nothing but b naught f theta phi, and my pi rad is nothing but p rad, which can be replaced by this entire expression. I have put it in the denominator. B naught from the numerator, b naught from the denominator will get cancelled, and I got 4 pi f theta phi divided by 0 to 2 pi, 0 to pi f theta phi sine theta d theta d phi. So my d naught will be equal to 4 pi. Since d naught is coming, so we are considering implied maximum direction, so f theta phi will be maximum. Similarly, with the integration you have to calculate the bottom, and this integration is a finite integration, so you will get a value out of it, and this value if you calculate and normalized with the numerator maximum value, this expression, the denominator whatever it is coming, is termed as the beam solid angle. So beam solid angle means it considers with the major lobe consideration. So it is defined like, how much angular fashion, in how much angle of the sphere the major power is going, and that is considered with respect to the directivity. It is a theoretical concept. So omega A is defined in this denominator quantity, and you can see I have written down this denominator quantity, and with this maximum thing it is coming Fn theta phi, which is actually this max normalized quantity. In more good words, if I had to say, the beam solid angle is defined as the solid angle through which all the power of the antenna would flow if its radiation intensity is constant and equal to the maximum value of u for all angles within omega A. This is a hypothetical concept, that where the beam solid angle is the angle through which majority of the power, or you can say all the power of the antenna would flow if its radiation intensity is constant. Now, the way I have defined the directivity, there are few other way to calculate the directivity. The way I calculated the directivity just now, it deals with the approach from the first principle, which needs to have excess of the radiation intensity function, which is quite obvious. In the expression just now, if you see whatever with the beam solid angle or the directivity, whatever you have seen, it all deals and starting point with u theta phi, which is the radiation intensity. But suppose if I do not give you the radiation intensity, or beforehand the radiation intensity function is not with me, because it is a mathematical functions, and these mathematical functions may not be readily available with me, then how to calculate the directivity? Just by looking at its radiation pattern, but just by looking at measured radiation pattern. For that we have to see the Krauss formula, and it is very simple what it has to be there. You have to take after drawing the radiation pattern, you have to take the half power beam width in two orthogonal plane. So in this figure you can say this figure A and B, there are half power beam widths I have taken. One is theta 1 degree, theta 2 degree. Theta 1 you can consider at radian also. So if you take degree, you have to take this d naught nearly equal to 41,000 divided by theta 1 degree, theta 2 degree. This will give you the directivity. So any radiation pattern if you draw, after that if half power beam width at two different plane if you take and get calculated, you will get the directivity using this calculation. But you may notice that there is a equality sign. It is not fully accurate, but the result will go towards an accurate value if the pattern that your directivity you are going to measure, it's a narrow beam or it's a very very highly directive and unidirectional radiation pattern, where the half power beamwidth of the two orthogonal or two principal planes are equally comparable. If they are differing by very huge value, then the result may not be accurate. That is why I have given a an equality sign. Now, having understood that, we will be discussing about the antenna gain. So I will again recollect. So what are the things we have already gone through? Radiation intensity we have gone through. Then we have defined something called solid angle, relation with radiation power density. Then we have seen something which we call it as beam solid angle, and then we have seen directivity, partial directivity, and then we have actually seen that Gauss equations to calculate the directivity, which does not use the axis of radiation intensity function defined by u theta phi. Now the next major parameter which is can be derived from directivity of an antenna is called the antenna gain. Now how we will define the antenna gain? The antenna gain G of an antenna is the ratio of the radiation intensity U in a given direction and the radiation intensity that would be obtained if the power fed to the antenna were radiated isotropically. So there is a difference actually in the denominator. Whenever we have seen the definitions of antenna directivity, it was radiation intensity divided by the, in a particular direction, divided by the U average, which is the radiation intensity averaged all over the direction. And in the antenna gain definition, the numerator is same, which is the radiation intensity in a particular direction divided by the radiation intensity that would be obtained if the power fed to the antenna were radiated isotropically. So that is why that will be, earlier it was pi rad, now it will be pi in. Pi in means whatever the power is fed to the antenna input, not whatever the power the antenna is radiating. There is a certain gap in between that, which indirectly invites a discussion. Does that mean that whatever power is going to the input of the antenna is not going to get radiated? Yes, it is exactly. There the losses are coming. Whatever power you are feeding in the antenna input, ultimately they will not all take part into the radiation. Some part is definitely going to get lost in the direct dielectric loss. Something will be lost inside the metal as a metallic loss, and there are many losses that can be present depending on your antenna geometry and the antenna material. So there is a certain difference in between the gain and directivity. So when people talk about gain, that means it discusses about it takes into consideration about the input power, so which can be measured directly. In contrast, the directivity is calculated via the radiated power. You should always remember this thing. Gain and directivity, they two are different things. So there are many factors that I was talking can worsen the transfer of energy from the transmitter to the antenna. Mismatch losses, the losses in the transmission line, which is the guided medium that is taking the power and ultimately delivering it to the antenna. Then losses in the antenna in the form of dielectric loss, conduction loss, polarization loss. So the radiation efficiency is the next parameter, and this radiation efficiency is actually the parameter which links between the gain and directivity. So if the directivity, whatever power is coming, whatever power is radiated, that much is not going to get radiated because of the losses. So if the directivity we are multiplying with a fraction, we are going to get the gain, and that fraction or that quantity is nothing but the efficiency. So this efficiency is defined as E. The total efficiency of the antenna ET is used to estimate the total loss of energy at the input terminals of the antenna and within the antenna structure. it includes all mismatch losses and the dielectric and conduction losses. So that E captures the exact losses that actually, you know, while the antenna is not able to take part into the radiation. So you can see that E is taking care of EP, which is polarization loss. Then it is taking about ER, which is the reflection loss, which is impedance mismatch. EC is the conductor loss. ED is the dielectric loss. Sometimes this EC and ED together we call it as E. So the reflection efficiency can be calculated through the reflection coefficient. So now I am trying to characterize it. So first I am taking from the C what is ER, which is mismatch loss. So tau is the power which is reflected back. So 1 tau square, tau is the amplitude of the reflection, which is power reflecting, voltage reflecting back. So tau square is the power. So 1 minus tau square is actually the reflection efficiency. Similarly, what is the value of tau? We know that that is Zin minus Zc divided by Zin plus Zc. Zin is the antenna input impedance and Zc is the characteristic impedance of the feed line. So you can actually assume here like that there is a transmission line of characteristic impedance of Zc, and there at the right side of the transmission line the antenna is connected. So ET equal to total reflection efficiency, ET can be defined by E into 1 minus mod tau square. So what is E basically? E is nothing but your ECD, and the polarization loss I have not considered here. There is no polarization losses, then the total efficiency can be read like that or can be interpreted like that, where the E term is coming, which is togetherly conductor and dielectric loss of the antenna. Now the next thing is called the beam efficiency. So the beam efficiency is the ratio of the power radiated in a cone angle 2 theta 1 and the total radiated power. So the total radiated power, again I know that I have to get the radiation intensity and I have to integrate it over the full solid angle. So the denominator you see 0 to 2 pi, 0 to pi, and u theta phi sin theta d theta d phi, and the 2 theta 1 if I need. So the beam efficiency means the ratio of the power radiated in a cone angle of 2 theta 1. So the theta is symmetric, so one side I have to integrate, so that is why it is 0 to 2 theta 1, and the power with respect to the radiation intensity I have integrated it over the solid angle, and the d phi integration is actually the 2 pi. So generally if you want to make a antenna which is used for radar applications or satellite where very highly directed pinpoint radiations needed, so there this beam efficiency you need very high. So this you need that this theta 1 to be very low, so the antenna will be having a very narrow directive, and if the antenna an antenna very narrow beam, and then in that case the beam efficiency will be very high and the angle theta 1 will be very low, so the 2 theta 1 will be very low. So in other words you can say that if my antenna directivity is very high, so then its beam width will be very narrow. If any this is actually a inversely proportional thing, because whenever an antenna should be very directive, very focused, then obviously its beam width is very low, its beam width will be very small and beam efficiency will be very high. So that is the general interpretation. So okay, so for today's lecture till this characterization parameter I will be covering, and I will conclude here. From my next lecture video we will start from this, and if I will share it with you in this video, you go through, and if you have any problem we can discuss. So to conclude it today, what are the things we have seen? We actually have seen today the basic antenna, how does it radiate. Then I have seen, or I have shown that how the radiation pattern looks like, what are their general classification, and what are the different parameters, what are the different blocks, or what are the different the terminologies associated with the radiation pattern. What is major parameter called radiation intensity, how it is linked with the directivity, how the gain and directivity is different, and when the gain and directivity can be equal, when there is no loss, how both are defined, then beam solid angle, and then beam efficiency, and obviously very important that what are the losses that can take part into the antenna, and togetherly how these losses can be handled. And one more thing, just I have to reconfirm that whichever, not all the antennas will have all kind of losses. Suppose in some antennas you are having only with metal, so there will be no dielectric loss, so there the majority loss will go or come in from the conduction losses. So that is why this E parameters, which is composite in the form of reflection efficiency, in the form of EC, ED, EP, that all may not be present. You have to see which one is present. Like if the antenna is generally taking the power from the guided input, so there will be a mismatch efficiency, there will be obviously a mismatch between the guided and antenna, because there will be certain reflection that you cannot control, certain reflection will definitely take place, so the ER will be generally there present. Then you have to see whether the antenna is made with a dielectric or not, then dielectric loss will take care. If the metal part is less, then E conductor loss will be less. So you have to see which are the losses present, and accordingly you have to calculate your total efficiency, and you have to calculate the radiation efficiency. So okay, today I will conclude till this point, and the next lecture I will go and continue with this. Till then, goodbye.